2023 Forte Ritchie Triathlon. We are doing the Olympic distance review here today. This is again the Olympic distance, which is going to be a 1500 swim, a 23.5 mile bike, and a 6.2 mile run. Diving into some of the race details here out on the website. You can check this out on the race info page. It gives you the address, event cancellation policies, and schedule of events. That's Saturday before 4 to 6 p.m. Athlete check-in and registration is the first option to check in. There's going to be a pre-race course talk at 5 p.m. and consider attending that if you are a first timer to the race and if you do have time or if you're already out there. Sunday, this is your second option to do the athlete check-in, which is 5:45 to 7:45 a.m. The safety meeting near the finish line happens at 7:30, and the start of the Olympic happens at 8:15. There are other races that are happening there that day, and they do have various start times. So know if you are doing the sprint, you are starting at 8. 8:15 is the Olympic. 10:30 is the sprint award, and the 11:30 a.m. slot is the awards ceremony. I am assuming that that is a typo and that's supposed to be AM. Athlete check-in is the same as all USAT races. Plan to bring your registration, your photo ID, all that good stuff, and you will have pretty much no problems there. And again, it lists the two options for your athlete check-in right there. At this race, you are going to be given a unique wristband that you will be required to wear during your duration at the race venue. If you want to get in or out of transition, you're going to have to be wearing that wristband. Bib numbers, you must wear those on the run, and they must be facing forward, or you will face a USAT sanctioned penalty, which is usually about 2 minutes, which is a lot on the Olympic. Bike numbers, you are required to adhere those to your bike as normal. Timing chips, you will get your timing chip when you do check in. I always like to have it on the left ankle. It's pretty standard stuff. If you want to do it on the right, I don't see any mention that says you can't, but left ankle is almost always preferred. Race day parking, they say do not park on the grass. It is plenty of spots available and a first come first serve basis on those spots. They say if you arrive earlier, you will get the earlier or closer spots to the race venue. So arrive early as you want for that close spot or not. Race morning procedure, it's again the same. You're going to pick up your packet, you're going to pick up your timing chip, you're going to get body marking, which they also mention. Don't forget to body mark before heading to the they say the pool, but this is a lake swim for your race start. Other than that, again, transition area, you must be wearing your unique wristband to walk around and interact with the race venue itself. They talk about how to properly rack your bike, which is saddle up on top of the bars. Unless you have a very, very tall bike, then you might be able to use the bullhorns. But again, I would talk with the race official about that. They talk about the wetsuit rules right through here, and again, pretty standard stuff for USAT. 78 degrees or below, wetsuits are allowed. 78.1 to 84. Participants may wear a wetsuit, but they forego the awards. And then 84 and above, wetsuits are not permitted. So now let's dive into some of the nitty-gritty details here. They have started off with the bike, and I guess we can do that here. The course is 23.5, and there is no aid stations on the bike, so you must plan to use what you bring yourself, and you must be self-sufficient. The run is a little bit different. There are 2 aid stations out there, so you don't have to bring or use what you bring out there. You will have some additional aid out there. Common violated bike rules are drafting and blocking, no headphones allowed, must wear your helmet, and stay to the right if you are not a faster cyclist. Even when there's no one there, always a good idea to just stay to the right, just in case someone does creep up on you. Aid stations, again, they talk about only 2 on the run and none on the bike. There will be some post-race food. Race results are going to be posted here, and awards are the following here. So let's dive into the course maps section of this breakdown, and we have the race start, which is happening right through here. The swim, I believe, is a 2-loop course for the Olympic and a 1-loop course for the sprint. So if you are doing your Olympic, you will be doing 2 loops of this course. Now, for the start of this, I am going to go ahead and assume that there is a buoy that is not marked right through here, that you will be forced to travel to the left-hand side here, and then you will be allowed to enter the race course that way. Plan for that little kick out to be very, very contested, even though it is not a super aggressive start. The race the racers are going to be piled in there and kind of corralled into a tight area, which always makes for a lot of action, no matter where you are. All right, and this first stretch is going to be directly into the sun if it is sunny, so people are going to remain bunched up for the duration of this first straightaway, and it's just going to be hard. Okay, it's going to be people around there. You just got to put your head down and get through it. If you are unable to sight, then sight off of the closest thing you can see out in the water there. This first turn is, again, it's going to be highly contested. There's going to be people mixed and matched all throughout here. During this next straightaway here, if you are a right-handed breather, then that would be happy days for you. And you can kind of see this a little bit better when we do zoom in here, if it lets me. There we go. You can see this a little bit better here. The swim that is happening, you're going to pretty much be directly going, and this is a north-south version of this, directly into the sun. And when you turn here, if you do breathe to the right, the sun isn't going to catch your eyes as much. So that would be that will be much better off for you. Coming back over here on this last straightaway of this triangle course, I always call the triangles the tricky triangles because that's exactly what they are out there. This long straightaway back to the transition area is going to be one that starts to open up and you start to find some cleaner water out there, no matter where you are, whether you're in the front, middle, or back. All right, so during this point in time, you need to start swimming your pace and stop worrying about other people if you haven't done that already. Because we do have another loop to go here, and this whole section here is going to be pretty calm this time around. The sun's going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be a little more difficult to see. So you might have some bunches that are mixed in with people, but it's not going to be just a straight line like it was for the first straightaway here. Coming back the second time, this next block is going to be an area where athletes are kind of suckered into going really, really hard. If you do want to make a jump to a different group or feel like you want to get out of the group that you're in, this second time on this straightaway is going to be the place to do it. Believe it or not this one right here. Because when you start to make this turn, it is all the way back in. You need to start kicking your feet a little bit more as you get closer to shore to get the blood back in the legs. Make sure you avoid cramping. And just kind of get yourself back to shore here so you can arrive at that transition area where you will have a decent run up to the transition zone right here. Now, once you do that, you are going to hop out onto the bike. And this is a breakdown of the bike here. There's a couple areas that you do need to pay attention for. The first one is this turn right through here. We are going to be peeling off of this on our first way out, and you could see here that the turn does come at a bit of an incline, but in the whole grand scheme of things, you should be going pretty fast when you get up until this point. So you need to be aware that this turn is coming. Hopefully they put down some slower signs or things like that. Another tricky turn is going to be this top one right through here. It's right directly through an intersection of a triangle, which means you have 1 and 2 areas to worry about on race day. And again, remember, this course is open to the public, so it isn't a totally shut down course. Let's go over to the power plan because it's going to take the words directly out of my mouth here. You could see here that this is the elevation, speed, and power here. The power duration, as you can see, slowly just increases throughout once you get past mile 6, and it just steadily goes up and up and up and up and up. So the first 6-ish miles, the first mile you do have to climb out of the park, but after mile 1, you do have 1 to 6 that are primarily downhill with some points that are uphill, but that should be a pretty fast section. Going to be very, very hard to manage your effort if you let it slide away during this point in time. Athletes that are chasing those excessively high speed durations here are going to pay the price later on. It's okay to go fast, but if you find yourself going at a rate, example for this athlete, they're supposed to be going their speed, we can get it here. Here we go. Their speed's supposed to be 30 miles an hour at this point in time, averaging about 130 watts at this immediate moment or point in time. If you find that you are doing 300 watts to try and hit 32, 33 miles an hour, again, I would just ask yourself, is it worth it, right? And because the speeds are so high, a lot of athletes are going to get suckered into not pedaling during this stretch of road. And I highly encourage you to not do that. You want to be pedaling here. You want to be getting the legs ready ready to work, because once you start to get to mile 7, mile 8, it is go time. It is go time. And here you can see the speed is declining, but power is increasing as you go through there. And that is the elevation gain there. This is the best bike, or not the best, this is the Ride with GPS route. And you can see here that this whole stretch right here, after we get past that first turn, is downhill. Then the next second key area out here is this little tiny stretch of road here from mile 7.4 to about 13.1. This has about 150 feet of our 1,500 feet of elevation gain, and this area, again, it should be fast, and this is going to be one of the areas that you're going to struggle with the most on race day, because we do have a bit of a headwind that happens here. Watch the rider through there, and as we are going out, it's headwind, and we have a little bit of a tailwind, but as we flip back around, that turns into a tailwind there. So that stretch where we start to flatten out, it's going to be a headwind, and you're going to want to go harder before we make that right-hand turn. And then as we get closer to the triangle, we should have a little bit of a tailwind before it swoops back around directly to a headwind when we get to the top of that turn there, and we make that turn, it's going to shift on us, and it's going to be a tailwind and then a crosswind for much of the rest of the race as the incline is happening and starting to creep up on us as we arrive back at transition. But from mile, let's call it 6.6 to 13.5, that's going to be an area where you have to be careful. It's okay to go fast, but just like that downhill, if you're finding that you are going really excessively hard and only gaining a mile an hour or two, you really have to weigh the pros and the cons at that point, because from mile 13.5 of our 1,500 feet of elevation, we have almost 1,000 feet mixed into here. This is going to be the point in time where athletes get separated and gapped that have not respected the first, let's call it, half of the course here. Be very, very careful up until this point, and when you do arrive at this point, mile 13, 13.5, it's time to kind of unload a can for a little bit, believe it or not. Mile 16, mile 17, the power is going to be naturally high, but this, in my mind, would be an area where you could kind of exploit some people here and catch them napping a little bit. And I'm not saying you go super aggressively hard, but just turning the screws just a little bit here will find you some real estate to work with on these uphills, and you can kind of bridge the gap up to some people, because everybody's going to be working hard on this uphill. You can take it to the bank. We have a lot of 5.5 percenters mixed in here. And there are also some 6.5 and 7%, just slightly, right? But the bulk of these harder inclines are going to happen from mile 16.8 to mile 19.5 there. After that point in time, it does start to flatten out a bit, and the smarter athletes have saved a little bit during this section and can still put the power out through here. That's one of the big areas you really want to focus on in an Olympic. The ability to put down the power for those last 4 to 5 miles will really, really benefit you when you start to get onto the run, which is the next one. This is a 4-loop course here. This, again, is the best I can do here. I had to create this one. And ignore this. This should be paved. This is just a, I couldn't get the GPS to kind of come back on itself here. So this is a 180-foot elevation gain here. This is a run. This is a 4-loop run course for the Olympic, and we will be able to experience the aid stations twice here, as they say. I'm not sure how that works, because if we're doing 4 loops, we should be able to access it a little bit more. But, you know, hey-ho. So with that, we are doing loops here, so you should have a good gauge of where your competitors are at because of that Castle Drive section, which I'm hovering over right now, because of this little plateau area. This is a section that is about 3,500 feet. Okay, you're doing that out and back. You're doing that 4 times, so you should have the ability to catch someone as you're peeling off, or excuse me, as you are getting off of the circle right here. You should have the ability to see people up until this point, and then all the way down this stretch, all the way back. And again, you can see here, and you can even look to the left over here and see who's coming if you don't see anybody right through there. So there's ample opportunity to see a lot of athletes here, and you should know where everyone is on this course pretty much all the time. There's great eye sight lines here, so you can watch people very well on a course like this with little effort. Biggest element you're going to have to battle here is the terrain. If we look over here, you can see as we're scrolling around, there is not going to be a lot of shade. You are going to be exposed to the elements outside of Castle Drive, and if we this is as far as I can zoom in for you, and the shade that is going to happen, it's not going to last for a long time. You're going to be darting in and out of trees, so it is not going to be like a shade canopy like in some other races here. You're going to go in and out of there, so the primary element that you're battling is the weather when you are trying to put a PR down here. Because of that, you want to really exploit those aid stations. You want to just attack them, get what you need. If they have ice, get it. Cool yourself off as best as possible. The successful athletes here are going to be the ones who manage their efforts on the bike. And do all the strategies that we just talked about while also keeping themselves a little cooler to allow themselves to go harder. So keep yourself cool to allow yourself to go harder later on. In a perfect world, we are increasing our time each loop. Because this is a four-looped one, you have the ability to just hit that run and hit the lap button here, and you can get your lap time for each one. So you'll know what's going on pretty frequently here, and you can also keep track of that via power or heart rate, whatever you're using to keep track of this. But monitor yourself and see what's going on the run. If you are starting to fade on the run, ask yourself what's going on. Are you under-fueled? Are you overheated? Have you gone out way too hard on the run? Watch your paces, watch your power. This is going to be a course that you are limited by yourself, okay? Because you are going to be able to see a lot of athletes all the time, you're going to be able to get suckered into chasing people you shouldn't, or vice versa. You know, if an athlete in front of you is going way slower than you, and you can create some mental games that you slow yourself down in an attempt to go their speed to kind of overtake them, you're going to lose time. If you are a person who gets really revved up about chasing the rabbit, you're going to have to keep it under control at a course like this, because there's going to be a lot of rabbits on this course. Be careful, mind yourself, and watch your targets out on race day. It's going to be a great day. Good luck, everybody.